for this July meeting, it presents the board and the public with a report on the Forest Preserve's Ambassador Animal Program, which is run by our Conservation and Experiential Programming Department. Jackie Ulrich, the director of our SEP department, will give a brief presentation today on the report's findings, and the full report will be available on our website at the conclusion of this meeting. Since Jackie will first give an overview of our research, the main findings and action steps for the entire Ambassador Animal Program, let me give you the top line about our coyote at River Trail Nature Center. I know that for many of you, that is your primary interest in this report. The Forest Preserves brought in 2 third-party veterinarian experts for this review to observe the coyote and review its care. Neither found that the coyote paces in an unnatural pattern or shows signs of stress. In line with every in-person review of the coyote, their evaluations show that we are meeting the Association of Zoos and Aquariums standards for nutrition, protection from the weather, sufficient water, natural light, and more. They did disagree on some points about future plans, and that will also be covered in the presentation. In the context of these evaluations and the full scope of our research, the report includes some action items for the enclosure and care for the coyote at River Trail Nature Center. The most notable is that we will build a much larger enclosure at River Trail Nature Center for the coyote this year, with 7 to 9 times more room than the current space. As important, the new enclosure will include more natural features, more and larger spaces to be away from people, and a more complex environment. We will also modify our enrichment activities, hone our educational information, and expand our monitoring protocols. This has been a contentious issue with a lot of accusations thrown around. Creating this report, we've learned that it's also a complex issue and that the framework for how to best care for ambassador animals in the midst of a significant evolution in this field. From the start of this process, our goal has been to use science and research to thoughtfully chart our course. I firmly believe that is how you make good public policy, and I want to thank President Preckwinkle, and I want to thank you, the board, for providing us the time and space to do just that. I was clear to our team that our bar for this report is to be ahead of the curve, among the leaders in the ambassador animal field. I think these plans will accomplish that goal and include ways to keep us in the forefront as well. I want to give my thanks to Jackie and the rest of the team behind this report: Nina Baki, Ryan DePaul, Melina Frazados, Kathy Garrity, Arthur Matthews, Lydia Euler, Michelle Uning, and Carl Vogel. I also want to thank Michelle Motlowitz and the entire team at River Trail Nature Center for the care they provide all the animals that live there. The new improvements to our systems and thinking about ambassador animal care are built on the excellent work that is already being done there. So now I want to turn it over to Jackie for the full report.
Thanks, Arnold. Morning, panel, president, and listeners. Thanks for we have a PowerPoint. So next slide. So I just want to give a little bit of background again on our Ambassador Animal Program. We have animals. We've had animals for decades at sites at the 6 nature centers. These animals include fish, amphibians, and reptiles inside, and birds and mammals that have been injured or imprinted and can't be released into the wild. Sorry about my frog in my throat. So we are meeting the standards of care that these animals require, the standards that are governed by the USDA and other agencies. And tens of thousands of visitors come and see these animals every year, hundreds of school field trips. We do hundreds of programs. The animals are beloved by many, and they really do provide a wonderful tool to teach people how to care about restoration and stewardship that we're doing at the Forest Preserve and making it a better home for these animals and how the public can best coexist with them. Next slide. So as promised, our findings are based in science and best practices in the field. You can see from this list who we interviewed and talked. Thank you. Whoops, that's okay.
Let's do it all over.
That's okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Interviews with national experts in the field, and we talked to other small facilities, much like ours. Thank you, ma'am. Really appreciate it.
This is the second. That's right. This is the second thing I've spilled today. I'm not clearly not quite together.
Thank you much.
Is that all right?
That's awesome.
Okay, good.
Appreciate it. So this is a list of the national experts in the field that we talked to, some of the smaller agencies that we talked to. We also reviewed academic research. We assessed our own animal care processes, and then we had the 2 experts that came in to review the coyote's enclosure, its care, and its welfare. Next slide. So what we found is we're not alone. The Association for Zoos and Aquariums have an ambassador animal program. There are smaller facilities all over the country like ours that take in animals that can't be released to the wild. And without these safe homes, many of these animals would have to be euthanized. So in a letter to us, the Wildlife Animal Sanctuary wrote, since there are literally tens of thousands of exotic and native animals in need of permanent placement within the United States, there are more animals than there are openings. They told us that their facility must focus on animals that are identified by animal welfare organizations as suffering or that are wards of the court. And they traditionally turn down as many animals as they take in every year. Next slide. So in our research, it was clear that the field of ambassador animals has been evolving and it's changing rapidly. Even in the last 5 to 10 years. So we've heard from new and changing philosophical frameworks, and those inform this final recommendations. These are the 5 domains which focus on nutrition, environment, health, behavior, and those all impacting the mental health and mental state of the animal. The animal's first paradigm that shifts the focus from what animals want, what humans want for animals, to what benefits the animals, and that animals should be given choice and control. Animals as educators, this is a central reason for having animals on display. And while there is some research that's mixed, if and how seeing animals helps people learn, we think, with the right messaging, the right interpretation, we can do a good job with that education. And then individualization, that there's much greater appreciation that each animal is a unique species. It's a unique member of its species with its own preferences, behaviors, and needs. Next slide. So from our research, we learned that what is considered best practices for the animals to ensure that they're getting really great care, careful attention, and the best opportunities to be healthy and to thrive. And this is a list of categories that's important. Factors for animal care that we gathered information about. It's in the report, and we outline what we've learned in the research and from the experts and our peers. Next slide. So just to be clear, the care that the Forest Reserve provides to its animals is in line with what is needed to ensure that animals are safe and healthy. And in many cases, the Forest Preserve's procedures and standards are among the best practices in the field. However, we can improve, we can add, and we can modify to our current work. The report gives 10 changes across the Animal Ambassador Program in these 3 broad categories. You can see them here, listed here, and the 10 items underneath. And the report provides more on how we will approach each of these 10 action items, as well as a time frame when the work will begin for each of those. Next slide. So now I want to talk about the coyote at River Trail. So the research about our animal ambassador informs what we're going to do with the coyote as well. But just to be clear, the coyote has been well cared for and is healthy, that it has been found to be true for every expert who has seen it in person. So that includes our Dr. Abedi, our vet, the regular USDA inspectors, the IDNR conservation officers, and the Sheriff Police Department Animal Criminals Division of the Special Victims Unit, which was called out with for a response to emails and found that the coyote was doing well. Also for this report, we brought in 2 third-party experts to review the coyote. Dr. Elisa Kubla, a doctor of veterinary medicine and a PhD candidate in conservation medicine. She works at the Veterinary Emergency Group in Chicago and has experience working with gorillas, elephants, and large carnivores. And Dr. Edgar Garrett is a doctor of veterinary medicine a clinician, a professor at the University of Illinois Veterinary and Teachers Hospital in Urbana, and he specializes in large animals, and he also practices. Both of these experts observed the coyote's behavior and interactions with visitors and staff. They reviewed its medical records and interviewed the key caretakers. And for their benchmark, they actually held the coyote's care to the standards of the large canine care manual of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. Next slide. So neither expert found that the coyote paces in an unnatural pattern or indicates stressful behavior. And both agreed that the care that's currently provided to the coyote meets AZA guidelines around nutrition, animal training, safety and containment, appropriate protection from cold and hot weather, and sufficient water, air quality, and natural light. Next slide. They had some differences of opinion, though. So around the enclosure, Dr. Kubla says we must create an adequate enclosure for the coyote and cites AZA guidelines of 5,000 square feet. Dr. Garrett said the expansion would be good, but it's not necessary or urgent. And he notes that the 5,000 square feet is a guideline for 2 coyotes who are not imprinted. In addition to size, AZA guidelines also include elements of design like naturalistic features and places to be away from people. We've at 2 of our peer organizations that we interviewed, they had coyote enclosures that were less than 5,000 square feet. And one of those was AZA accredited. Next slide. So living with other coyotes. Dr. Kubla also says that the coyote should live with another coyote. Dr. Garrett said that introducing it to other coyotes could be beneficial, but could also be stressful, and it might not work for this specific animal. Dr. Abedi, our vet, says our coyote is ill-equipped to interact with other coyotes and would likely be a social outcast, and it would jeopardize its safety and welfare. So research shows that some coyotes live in packs, some live in pairs, and some live alone. In over 22 years, the Urban Coyote Research Project has monitored coyotes. More than a third of the animals that they've studied have lived alone. Additionally, we think about this idea of individualism. We shouldn't assume that all coyotes want the same thing. And again, we have an imprinted and habituated coyote. Of the peer organizations we interviewed, 4 have coyotes in their care. One of those pairs, a sibling pair, and then 3 have 1 coyote. 2 of those are AZA accredited. Thank you. So some other factors that we're taking into consideration as we make this recommendation. So Dr. Kubla has stated that the river trail staff was not sufficiently clear that the coyote is a habituated wild animal and not a domesticated canine, though that didn't come up in any of the other reviews. So moving the coyote is unknown. So to balance any possible benefits to a new home, we also have to consider that it could be stressful or bad for this specific individual to travel across the country, to be away from people who have cared for it most of its life, to be introduced to other coyotes. And this coyote currently has been assessed as not stressed and is happy and healthy. The coyote's education can help other coyotes. Wild coyotes are often feared or misunderstood by members of the public, and so are harmed directly or indirectly. Experts at the Brookfield Zoo says the biggest cause of death of coyotes in Illinois is negative interactions between humans and coyotes. And finally, closing our mammal sanctuary takes away a home for an animal that cannot live in the wild. Remember, the Wildlife Animal Sanctuary has to turn down half the animals as they take in every year. If our location can sufficiently be improved and the coyote stays at River Trail, they can use the slot for another animal. That means another coyote living in much worse conditions won't have to be euthanized and can live a healthy, happy life. Next slide. So can you go back? So our recommendations. As noted, the coyote has been getting excellent care with expert assessments of possible improvements and the knowledge of best practices in research. We make these recommendations for change. We recommend that we enclose and improve the coyote enclosure, a larger size, be kind of in the same place if you know where the coyote is now, but back farther and wider. Perhaps we can use the current enclosure for a holding area or for vet checks and other needs. We were going to add enrichment activities and elements to the enclosure and add more. It'll be more naturalistic with rocks, grass, and trees. We'll enhance the enrichment opportunities for the coyote, add different types of enrichment activities, and make sure staff have the time to accomplish and that there will be a clear plan for these activities. Improve the interpretation and messaging around the coyote, ensure that everyone has the right message and the clear message, communicate that to the public, and then prioritize the educational information to the public about coyotes living in the wild in Cook County and why and how humans can best coexist with them. And then establish a more robust monitoring protocol for the coyote's behavior. We'll expand its monitoring. We'll make some changes. We'll add a camera, maybe a monitoring tool, and we'll also be keeping these as regular records of its behavior so that we can continue to evaluate the coyote's health and well-being. And that concludes, thank you, last slide, my report. Thanks, Arnold.
All right, I think you still have items to